Rain fell like cold needles from a gray sky, cutting through the dusty air of the alien slums. The streets were empty except for one small figure, an alien girl no older than 8. Her skin was pale blue and her big silver eyes were full of fear. Her thin hands clutched a torn blanket around a small basket of medicine leaves. She had walked all day. Her bare feet were bleeding. But she didn't stop. Her mother was dying. For 3 days the woman hadn't opened her eyes. The fever had spread fast, turning her skin gray and cold. The girl had tried everything. Old herbs, boiled water, prayers whispered under the 2 moons, but nothing worked. The doctors refused to help. They said the sickness was a human disease, that it was dangerous. No one wanted to touch them, so the little girl did the only thing she could. She went knocking on doors. The first door opened only a little. A woman looked out, then slammed it shut the moment she saw the blue child. "Go away," she shouted from inside. "Your kind brings death." The second door didn't even open. The third spat at her. The fourth threw dirty water. The fifth just laughed. Every door that closed behind her took away a little piece of hope. But she kept walking, her small steps echoing through the narrow alleys. By the time she reached the 17th door, her legs were shaking. Her tail drooped, soaked with rain. She whispered through cracked lips, "Please, my mother." But the alien man inside stared at her with disgust. "Get lost, child," he growled, "before someone sees you." The door shut again. The girl stood there for a long moment, trembling. 17 doors, 17 hearts that didn't care. She looked up at the night sky, where the twin moons floated like pale eyes watching her pain. The wind howled between the broken buildings. She thought about her mother lying alone in the dark, waiting. Then she saw another house at the end of the street, the 18th door. It looked different, not like the others. Metal walls, small lights glowing near the edges, a strange sign above the doorway in a language she couldn't read. Her heart pounded fast. Her people said no one should ever go near that place. It belonged to a human. Humans were monsters. That's what she had always been told. Cold, cruel, dangerous. The war had ended years ago, but the stories stayed alive. Stories about humans burning cities, breaking worlds. But right now, fear didn't matter. Her mother's life was slipping away with every second. She stepped forward. Her hand trembled as she knocked once. No answer. She knocked again, harder this time. The sound echoed down the empty street. After a long pause, the door creaked open. Warm light spilled out, golden and strange against the cold rain. A tall figure stood in the doorway. A human man, broad-shouldered, his face hidden by shadow. He wore a simple brown coat and his eyes glowed faintly from the light behind him. The girl froze. Her mind screamed to run, but her body stayed still. The man's voice was low, calm, almost tired. "What are you doing out here, little one?" She swallowed, her throat dry. My mother is sick," she whispered. "No one will help us." The man didn't move. His eyes studied her for a long, heavy moment. Then he knelt down slowly, bringing himself closer to her height. His face came into view, human, yes, but not cruel, weathered, scarred, kind in a quiet, painful way. "What's your name?" he asked. "Leary," she said softly. "Leary," he repeated almost to himself. "And your mother?" "She's dying. I just need help, please." He looked past her down the empty alley. The rain still fell, washing the dirt from her small face. He saw the fear in her eyes, the same kind of fear he once saw in war victims long ago on other worlds. His jaw tightened. Inside his mind, old memories returned. His own daughter, the last thing he couldn't save. He sighed. Then he stood up and looked at her again. "Come in," he said quietly. "You're freezing," Leary blinked. She wasn't sure she'd heard him right. "You mean, you'll help?" The man didn't answer. He just stepped aside, holding the door open. Warm air brushed against her skin. The smell was strange. Metal, food, and something else she couldn't name. Her small feet hesitated at the threshold. She looked up once more at his face, then at the safety behind him. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of warmth inside her chest. She took one step forward. The door closed softly behind her, shutting out the rain and the darkness. Inside, the room glowed with quiet light. Machines hummed gently, screens flickered with blue symbols. The human walked ahead, his heavy boots thudding softly on the floor. Leary followed, her eyes wide. There were pictures on the walls, strange smiling faces. A woman, a little human girl. The man stopped near a table. He poured warm liquid into a cup and placed it in front of her. "Drink," he said. "You'll need your strength." She stared at the cup, then at him. Why are you helping me?" He looked at her for a moment, then said softly, "Because nobody helped me when I needed it." Leary didn't understand what he meant, but the sound of his voice felt safe. Outside, thunder rolled through the sky. Inside, the little alien girl took her first sip of warmth in days. And as she did, the human turned toward the window, his eyes narrowing. Somewhere far away, he felt something changing. The past was coming back. He didn't know it yet. But that knock on his door would change everything. The door closed softly behind her, locking out the sound of rain and thunder. Inside, it was quiet, too quiet. Leary stood still, water dripping from her torn dress, her small feet leaving wet marks on the metal floor. Warm air filled the room, carrying the smell of oil and strange spices. The human turned and looked at her, his face calm but unreadable. "Sit," he said, pointing to a small chair near the firelight. Leary hesitated. Every story she'd ever heard said humans were dangerous. But this one had opened his door. He had offered her warmth. Slowly, she walked to the chair and sat, clutching her basket close to her chest. The man moved around the room, his heavy boots echoing. Machines blinked blue and green behind him, strange human devices she didn't understand. He poured warm brown liquid into a cup and placed it in front of her. "Drink this," he said. "It's safe." Leary sniffed it first. The smell was sharp but sweet. She took a tiny sip. The warmth spread through her throat and down to her cold belly. Her eyes lifted slightly, watching him. "Thank you," she whispered. The man didn't answer. He sat down across from her, his hands folded on the table. His eyes were tired, gray and distant, like someone who had seen too much. "You said your mother's sick," he said after a moment. Leary nodded quickly. "She can't breathe. She's cold. I tried herbs. I tried everything. No one will help us. Where is she?" "In the old sector, near the canals." He frowned slightly. "That's 2 hours from here. I can take you," she said quickly. "Please, sir. You have medicine." "I saw bottles, machines." The human leaned back in his chair. He rubbed his face with one hand. "Your people don't like mine," he said quietly. "They might kill me if I go there." "They won't," she said, though her voice shook. "I'll protect you." He almost smiled at that, a small, sad smile. "You'll protect me, huh?" Leary nodded firmly. "You helped me, so I'll help you." The human looked at her for a long moment. He could see the truth in her eyes, pure, desperate, and unbroken. Something inside him moved. Something he thought was long dead. He stood up slowly. "Fine," he said. "Finish your drink. Then we go." Her face lit up. "You'll really come?" He didn't reply. Instead, he walked to a locker near the wall. He opened it and pulled out a long brown coat and a metal case filled with medical tools. When he turned back, Leary was standing holding her basket tightly. "What's your name?" she asked softly. He paused. It had been years since anyone had asked him that. "John," he said finally. "John Keller." Leary smiled a little. "Thank you, John Keller," he grunted, pulling on his coat. "Just John is fine." They stepped out into the rain again. The street was silent except for the soft hum of neon signs flickering above. Leary led the way through narrow alleys, her small feet splashing in puddles. John followed behind, scanning every corner like a soldier who couldn't stop watching for danger. As they walked, Leary spoke softly, her voice trembling but hopeful. She told him about her mother, how she had worked in the refinery until the sickness came. How everyone said it was a human disease from old weapons and anyone who caught it was cursed. John listened in silence. After a while, he said, "What about your father?" Leary shook her head. "I never had one. Mama said he was gone before I was born." John's jaw tightened. The rain ran down his face, mixing with something else he refused to name. They reached the edge of the slums. The houses here were broken shells, windows covered with plastic, smoke leaking from cracked chimneys. A faint light glowed in one of the shacks. Leary stopped. "That's my home," she whispered. John's eyes scanned the shadows. He could feel the stares of people behind broken windows. Alien faces peered out, whispering, judging. One spat on the ground as he passed. "Traitor," the alien muttered. John ignored it. He followed Leary to the door. Inside, it smelled of damp air and sickness. A woman lay on a cot, her skin gray-blue, her breathing shallow. Leary dropped beside her, holding her hand. "Mama, I brought help." He's human, but he's good. He'll save you. The woman's eyes fluttered open. When she saw John, fear flashed across her face. No, she whispered weakly. No humans. John knelt beside her without a word. He placed his hand on her wrist, checking her pulse. Then he reached into his metal case and began unpacking tools. Leary watched with wide eyes. Can you fix her? John didn't answer. His voice was calm but serious. I'll try. He pressed a small device to the woman's neck. It hissed softly, releasing tiny sparks of blue light. The smell of ozone filled the air. Then, faintly, the woman's breathing eased. Her chest lifted a little more. Her eyes closed, no longer in pain. Leary gasped. It's working! John shook his head slightly. Not yet, but it's a start. Outside, thunder rolled again. In the shadows beyond the window, unseen eyes watched the flicker of human light and sent a signal. They knew where the human was now, and they were coming. The small shack shook every time thunder rolled over the city. The roof leaked, the walls groaned, and the smell of sickness hung heavy in the air. John crouched beside the cot, his human hands steady as he worked. Leary sat close, holding a dim lantern and watching every move with wide, trusting eyes. Her mother lay still, eyes half open, breathing shallow. The blue of her skin had turned dull gray. Her lips moved without sound, whispering to someone who wasn't there. John wiped sweat from his forehead and adjusted a metal band on his wrist. The device hummed, flashing faint green light. He pressed it against the woman's neck again. Her pulse is weak, he muttered to himself. Lungs collapsing. Infection spreading fast. Leary leaned forward. Can you save her? He didn't look up. I'll try. But she's been sick for too long. He opened his case. Inside were tools and vials unlike anything the girl had ever seen. Tiny silver needles, small glowing capsules, packets labeled with human symbols. John worked quickly, his movements sure and practiced like someone who had done this 100 times before. He injected one of the glowing vials into the woman's arm. The fluid shimmered under her skin, pulsing like light through water. Leary gasped softly. What is that? Nanotech, John said quietly. Little machines. They fight the infection inside her. Leary stared in awe. Humans can make machines that small? John nodded. We used them during the wars. To save soldiers, to try to save everyone. His voice faded on the last words. For a second, the hard shell on his face cracked. There was something in his eyes, a memory, painful and deep. Leary didn't understand it, but she felt it. She touched his sleeve gently. You're kind, she said. John looked at her, startled. Kind? No, kid. Just tired of watching people die. A sound interrupted them, a faint hum outside. John's head snapped toward the window. Through the cracks, a dim red light flickered across the wet alley. He frowned. Stay quiet. He moved to the door and peered out. 2 armored aliens were walking slowly between the shacks, scanning the streets with glowing helmets. Their uniforms bore the mark of the colony guard. John cursed under his breath. They're looking for me. Leary's small voice trembled. Why? Because I'm human, he said. And humans aren't welcome here. He turned off the lantern and motioned for her to stay down. The room sank into darkness. Outside, the guards' voices echoed faintly. Sector 3 clear. Check the next row. Someone reported strange power readings. John gripped a small weapon from his belt. His hand didn't shake. Years of training still lived inside his bones. Minutes passed like hours. Then the red light drifted away, fading into the rain. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. Leary finally whispered, They're gone. John nodded. For now. He holstered the weapon and returned to her mother. The woman's breathing was a little steadier now. A faint color was returning to her cheeks. Leary's eyes filled with tears. You're saving her. John gave a tired half-smile. She's fighting. I'm just helping. He cleaned his tools and checked the readings on his wristband again. She'll need rest. A lot of it. And water. Leary jumped up and ran to the corner, filling a small cup from a cracked pipe. Here, she said eagerly. She can drink this. John stopped her gently. No, not from that. It's poisoned, Leary frowned. Poisoned? He nodded grimly. The water supply here was contaminated months ago. That's what started the sickness. Her small hands shook. They did this on purpose? John didn't answer, but the silence was enough. He looked down at the weak woman again. She needs clean water, real food. Somewhere safe to heal. There's nowhere safe, Leary whispered. Not for us. John looked around the room, the broken furniture, the leaking roof, the child's basket of dead herbs. He stood up slowly. Then we'll make somewhere safe. Before Leary could speak, there was a soft knock at the door. Once. Twice. John froze. His hand went straight to his weapon. Who's there? No answer. Only rain. He glanced at Leary, who clung to her mother's hand. The knock came again, louder this time. John moved to the window and peered out carefully. A shadow stood in the rain, tall, armored. One of the soldiers had come back. John's eyes hardened. They found us, he turned back to Leary. Stay behind me. Don't make a sound. The girl nodded, heart pounding in her chest. Outside, the soldier's voice called through the storm. We know you're in there, human. Step out or we come in. John glanced once more at the dying woman, then at the trembling child. His voice dropped to a cold whisper. Then they'll have to come through me. And with that, he reached for his rifle as the thunder cracked overhead. The thunder rolled again, louder this time, shaking the fragile walls of the small home. Leary froze where she stood, clutching her mother's hand. John stayed near the door, his weapon raised, eyes sharp and steady. The shadow outside didn't move. Open up. The soldier barked. You're harboring a human. This sector is restricted. John didn't answer. His finger rested lightly on the trigger. The air between them thickened with tension. Leary could hear her heartbeat in her ears. The door shuddered as something heavy struck it. The latch bent. A second hit came, stronger. John cursed under his breath. They're coming in. He turned quickly to Leary. Take your mother. Go behind the table. Don't come out until I say, but now. Leary obeyed, dragging her weak mother to the dark corner behind the old metal table. The woman's breathing was shallow, her lips trembling. Leary whispered, It's okay, Mama. He'll protect us. The third hit broke the door open. Rain and wind burst in, spraying the walls with water and dust. Two soldiers stepped inside, armored in dark steel, weapons drawn. Their helmets glowed red through the mist. John stood in the center of the room, silent. The firelight flickered across his face, showing the scars that ran down his jaw. One soldier sneered. You picked the wrong planet to hide, Terran. John's tone was calm, almost too calm. I'm not hiding. The soldier raised his blaster. Then you're dying. The moment stretched. Leary held her breath. John moved first. A flash of blue light filled the room as he fired once, hitting the first soldier's shoulder. The alien crashed into the wall, armor sparking. The second soldier roared and fired back, the beam slicing across the ceiling. Dust and metal rained down. Leary covered her ears as the blasts echoed through the house. Her mother tried to move, whispering, No. No more fighting. John rolled behind a broken cabinet, reloaded, and shouted, You don't have to die here. Leave now. The standing soldier laughed bitterly. A human giving mercy? That's new. John's eyes darkened. I've seen enough death to last a lifetime. He stepped out, aimed carefully, and fired again, disarming the soldier this time. The weapon clattered to the floor, glowing faint red in the dark. The soldier froze, staring at him. The man in front of him wasn't just a drifter, he was trained. Dangerous. The kind of human that stories warned about. John walked forward slowly, gun still raised. I don't want to hurt you. I just want the girl's mother to live. Leave now, and you won't be part of this. The alien hesitated, looking between John's weapon and the weak woman behind the table. His armor hissed as he backed toward the door. You think this ends here, human? You'll have the whole patrol after you by dawn. John's voice was cold as steel. Then tell them to bring more. The soldier snarled but didn't stay. He dragged his injured comrade out into the rain. The storm swallowed their footsteps. Silence fell again. Only the sound of dripping water filled the room. John lowered his weapon slowly. His shoulders sagged, exhaustion pressing down on him. He turned toward the corner. You can come out now. Leary peeked out first. Her silver eyes were wide with both fear and awe. You scared them, she whispered. John gave a tired smirk. I used to do that for a living. He helped her mother back onto the cot. The woman's eyes were half open now, weak but aware. You fought for us, she rasped. John shook his head. Just stopped them from making things worse. Leary touched his arm. You didn't run. Running never helps, he said quietly. Believe me. Outside the rain began to ease. The air smelled of smoke and wet metal. Far in the distance, a siren wailed, warning the colony that something had happened in Sector 3. John packed up his tools again, moving quickly. They'll come back, he said. With more men. Leary swallowed hard. What will we do? John looked down at her, then at the sick woman who was barely clinging to life. His expression softened. We move her. I know a place outside the city. Somewhere safe. Leary's eyes brightened. You'll take us? He nodded once. I started this. I'll finish it. She smiled for the first time that night, a small, fragile smile full of hope. John turned off the remaining lights and pulled his coat tight. Outside, the thunder faded into silence. The storm had passed, but something darker was coming. As they prepared to leave, John paused at the doorway. He glanced back at the two moons still glowing over the wet streets. For a brief moment, he whispered something under his breath, words from an old war prayer. Then he looked down at Leary and said softly, Let's go, before the next storm finds us. And together, the human and the little alien girl stepped into the night, toward danger, toward hope, and toward the beginning of something that neither of them yet understood. The morning light was pale and weak when John finally stopped walking. The storm had passed, leaving the ground muddy and the air cold. Leary walked beside him, holding her mother's hand tightly as they moved through the silent ruins outside the colony. The woman was barely conscious, her head resting against Leary's shoulder. John scanned the area carefully. Broken walls, rusted towers, and the remains of old machines surrounded them, ghosts from a forgotten war. We'll rest here, he said quietly. No patrols come this far. Leary nodded, too tired to speak. She helped her mother lie down on a soft patch of dry grass. The woman's breathing was shallow but steady. John crouched beside her, checking her pulse and adjusting a small device attached to her wrist. It pulsed with faint blue light. She's holding on, he murmured. The nanotech is working. Leary looked at him, her silver eyes filled with cautious hope. You really are a doctor? John paused for a moment before answering. I was, once, a field medic. Long time ago. He stood and looked around the ruins. The wind carried the faint hum of broken generators and the smell of metal dust. Leary followed him, curious. You lived in the war? She asked softly. John's face hardened. Lived through it. Not sure that's the same thing. He walked toward an old bunker door half buried under the dirt. With a few strong pulls, he managed to open it. The air inside was stale but dry. It'll do, he said. Get her inside. Leary helped move her mother in while John set up a small lamp that gave off soft, warm light. Inside the bunker were scattered crates and broken screens. Dust floated through the air like slow-moving stars. For the first time since they met, the silence between them wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. After a while, Leary sat near the fire John had made. She watched him clean his tools and pack away his medical case. The way he moved, calm, steady, practiced, made her wonder what kind of life he'd lived before ending up here. She finally asked, Why did you help me? John didn't look up. Because no one else would. That's not an answer, she said softly. He sighed, sitting back against the wall. You wouldn't understand. Maybe I will, she said. Her voice was quiet but brave. John studied her for a moment. The little alien girl was small, fragile-looking, yet her eyes carried a strength he hadn't seen in years. He leaned his head back and stared at the cracked ceiling. I had a daughter once, he began. His voice was low, rough around the edges. She was about your age. Brown hair, bright eyes. Always wanted to explore. We lived on a small colony world, until the war reached it. Leary listened silently, her hands folded in her lap. John's gaze went distant. When the fighting started, I was away, saving soldiers on the front line. By the time I got back, the colony was gone, burned, everyone gone. He didn't say the next part, but Leary understood. The pain in his voice told the rest. I left the army after that, he continued. There wasn't any point anymore. I spent years wandering between systems, fixing what I could, helping when no one else would. Guess old habits die hard. Leary's voice trembled when she spoke. You helped me because I reminded you of her? John nodded once. Maybe. Or maybe I just didn't want another child to die because no one opened their door. Leary's throat tightened. She didn't know what to say, so she just whispered, Thank you. He gave her a small smile, the first real one since she met him. You don't owe me thanks. Just promise me you'll keep her safe. I will, she said firmly. They sat in silence again. The only sound the soft breathing of her sleeping mother. Outside, the light dimmed as clouds gathered once more. John adjusted a sensor near the door, its tiny green light blinking in rhythm. He frowned. Something's moving out there. Leary's head snapped up. The soldiers? Maybe, John said. Or maybe worse. He grabbed his rifle and moved quietly toward the entrance. Through the narrow gap, he could see faint glows moving across the wasteland. Search drones, scanning the area. They're tracking the nanotech signal, he muttered. I should have known. Leary ran to his side, fear rising in her voice. They'll find us. John took a deep breath. Not if I shut them down first. He reached for a small device from his coat, a pulse jammer, old and unstable. Stay inside. Don't move, but you'll get hurt. John looked back at her, his eyes calm but determined. If they find us, we all get hurt. I'll be quick. Leary's heart pounded as she watched him step outside, disappearing into the fading light. The wind picked up again, carrying the hum of machines and the distant thump of heavy footsteps. Leary clung to her mother's hand, whispering a silent prayer to the stars. Somewhere out in the ruins, a flash of blue light broke the darkness. Then another John Keller, human soldier doctor, was fighting once more, and this time it wasn't for orders or medals. It was for a promise he made the night an alien child knocked on his door. The wind screamed across the ruins, carrying the scent of smoke and burning metal. John crouched behind a broken wall, rifle steady, eyes focused on the glowing shapes moving through the fog. The drones floated low, scanning every inch of the wasteland. Behind them, armored soldiers advanced in silence. The same patrol from the colony, but this time there were more of them. He had known they would come. Still, seeing them now made his stomach twist. He'd seen this kind of hunt before. Once it had been humans on the other side. Now it was him. He checked his rifle, half charge left. The pulse jammer in his coat hummed softly, disrupting the nearest drone. It flickered, spun, and crashed into the mud with a hiss. One down, too many left. Inside the bunker, Leary waited beside her mother, listening to the faint sounds of gunfire. Every few seconds, a flash of blue light filled the cracks in the wall. Her small hands trembled as she pressed them against her ears. Please, please let him be okay, she whispered. Her mother stirred weakly. Leary, where's the human? He's fighting, she said. He said he'll come back. The woman tried to rise, but her strength was gone. He shouldn't risk his life for us, Leary's voice broke. He already did. Outside, John ducked as a plasma bolt tore through the air, striking the wall above him. The explosion threw dust into his face. He coughed, blinking hard. A soldier's voice echoed through the ruins. John Keller, you're surrounded. Surrender, and maybe we'll spare the aliens. John laughed bitterly. You won't. He moved quickly, setting up 3 small mines from his pack along the edge of the wall. Then he darted to another piece of cover, rolling through the mud. His shoulder burned. One of the shots had grazed him, but he ignored it. Through the smoke, he could see 5 soldiers now, spreading out in formation. He recognized the one in front, the same officer who had broken into Leary's home. John's jaw tightened. You again. The officer's voice was calm and cold. You're a relic, Keller. A human who doesn't know when to die. Give up. John's answer was a sharp shot that grazed the officer's helmet. Guess I forgot how. The mines detonated, shaking the ground. Fire ripped through the fog, sending 2 soldiers sprawling. John sprinted across the rubble, sliding behind an old transport shell. The air smelled of ozone and burnt armor. He could feel his strength fading, but his mind stayed sharp. He'd been here before, alone, outnumbered, holding the line. The difference was why he was doing it now. Not for orders. Not for war. For a child who still believed someone could care. Inside the bunker, Leary's mother was fading fast again. Her breathing turned ragged. Leary, she whispered, you have to run if he doesn't return. Leary shook her head fiercely. No, he said stay. I'll wait, her mother smiled faintly. You trust him more than anyone, don't you? Yes, Leary said. He opened the door. Outside, the last of the drones exploded with a burst of static. John stumbled out of the smoke, breathing hard, blood running down his arm. He reloaded and took cover behind a rusted pillar. Only 2 soldiers were left now. One shouted to the other, He's bleeding. Move in, they rushed him. John fired once, then twice. One fell, the other ducked. The officer raised his weapon, shouting, You can't save them. They'll die anyway. John stood tall, his voice echoing across the ruins. Maybe, but not today. The officer fired. John took the hit square in the chest and dropped to one knee. Pain tore through him, white and sharp, but he didn't stop. With his last burst of strength, he aimed and fired back. The beam hit true. The officer fell, armor cracking, and the wasteland fell silent again. John stayed on his knees for a long moment, breathing hard, staring at the distant bunker. His vision blurred. "Leary," he muttered. "Stay safe, kid." He tried to stand, but fell forward into the mud. The world dimmed around him. Inside, Leary felt something change. The air went quiet, no more explosions, no more thunder. She ran to the door, ignoring her mother's weak call. "Stay here," she shouted and sprinted into the light. Her small feet splashed through puddles as she followed the smoke trail. And there he was, John Keller, lying in the mud, blood soaking his coat, his weapon still clutched in his hand. "John," she cried, dropping beside him. He opened one eye and managed a faint smile. "Told you I'd come back." Leary's tears fell onto his face as she shook her head. "Don't talk. I'll fix you. You saved her, now I'll save you." John's voice was weak, but his eyes shone. "You already did, kid." Behind them, the gray clouds began to break. Sunlight spilled over the ruins for the first time in days, touching the ground where a human had made his last stand. And somewhere in that light, Leary knew. This wasn't the end. Not for him. Not for her. The sun broke through the clouds, painting the ruined land in soft gold. Smoke drifted lazily into the air, curling around shattered metal and burned ground. Leary sat beside John's still body, her small hands pressed against his chest. His heartbeat was faint, but there, slow, steady, refusing to stop. "Come on, John," she whispered, tears streaking her dirt-covered face. "You said you'd finish this." Her mother limped toward them from the bunker, weak but alive. She knelt beside her daughter, eyes filled with disbelief and gratitude. He did all this for us." Leary nodded through her tears. "He didn't let them take us. He fought for us, Mama. He didn't even know our names." The woman reached out and brushed a hand over John's blood-stained coat. "Then we'll make sure he's not forgotten." John stirred faintly, a groan escaping his lips. His eyes fluttered open, and for a moment confusion crossed his face. Then he saw them both, safe, alive, and a small, tired smile appeared. "Told you. I don't die easy." Leary laughed through her tears. "You scared me." "Scared myself too," he muttered, trying to sit up. Pain shot through him, and he winced. "Guess I'm too old for this." Her mother helped support him, wrapping the blanket around his shoulders. "You need rest, human. The fight's over." John looked at the ruined field around them, the broken drones, the fallen soldiers, the silent city beyond. "No," he said quietly. "It's not over, not yet. Not until they stop hunting people for being different." Leary frowned, her small voice trembling. "Can we stop them?" John looked at her, and his tired eyes softened. "You can. One day." They spent the next hours tending to wounds, cleaning what little they could. John showed Leary how to mix healing paste from dried roots and water. She worked carefully, her tiny hands steady. The sun climbed higher, and the air warmed for the first time in days. Later, when John finally drifted into sleep, Leary sat beside him, watching his chest rise and fall. Her mother leaned against a wall, whispering softly, "He's not like what they said humans were." Leary shook her head. "He's better." Days passed. The ruins grew quiet again. Leary and her mother built a small shelter beside the bunker. John recovered slowly, though the scars remained. Every night they sat around a small fire, sharing stories of human worlds, of alien cities, of what life used to be before war. One evening, as the twin moons rose, Leary asked him, "Will you go back to your people?" John poked at the fire with a stick, watching the embers dance. "I don't have people anymore," he said. "Not in the way you think. The ones I knew are gone." "Then stay," she said softly. "Stay with us." He looked at her hopeful eyes and small smile. "I might just do that," he replied. But fate had its own plans. 2 weeks later, a small group of aliens from the colony arrived, neighbors who had once shut their doors on Leary. They came quietly, carrying food, water, and medicine. None of them could look John in the eye at first. One of them, an older man, finally spoke. "We heard what you did. You fought our guards. You saved one of our own." John said nothing. The man lowered his head. "We were wrong about humans. Leary stepped forward proudly. He's not just human. He's our friend, the man nodded slowly. Then we'll help him heal. We'll help all of you, and so they did. The shelter became a gathering place, a safe home for anyone who needed healing, no matter their kind. Humans, aliens, anyone willing to help was welcome there. They called it the 18th door, named after the night Leary knocked and one human answered. Years passed. The scars of war faded. Leary grew older, stronger, wiser. Her mother worked beside her, and John, though older and slower, never left. He taught them medicine, compassion, and the simple strength of kindness. One night, under the same twin moons, John sat outside the clinic. Leary, now a young woman, joined him with a smile. We helped another family today, she said. A human child and his alien mother. John smiled faintly. Good, that's how it should be. She looked at him with deep affection. You kept your promise. You opened a door and changed everything. He turned his eyes to the horizon where the stars glimmered. No, Leary, you did. A soft breeze passed between them. The night was calm, full of life and hope. John leaned back, his gaze drifting upward. If anyone ever asks, he murmured, tell them humans aren't monsters. Leary's voice was steady and full of warmth. I'll tell them humans saved us. He smiled one last time, the firelight reflecting in his tired eyes. Then I can rest easy. When dawn came, John was gone, his hand still resting on the rifle he had once used to protect them, his face peaceful. Leary buried him beneath the twin moons, marking the grave with a simple plaque. Here lies John Keller, the human who opened the 18th door. And from that day on, travelers from every race came to the place where one act of kindness had changed the galaxy's story forever. Because sometimes, all it takes is one open door to remind the universe what humanity truly means.